oldest known music festival is the Pythian Games, held every 4 years at Delphi in ancient Greece from 532 BC until 424 AD. The event featured music, art, and poetry competitions. Held in honor of Apollo, it also included Olympic-style athletic competitions and a chariot race.
Oh my gosh. Let me think about that one for a second.
Go back before you do remember. When was the first time someone talked about a music festival?
I think Muskogee's been talking about a music festival for a very long time. In 2013, we had a tourism consultant come to Muskogee and talk to us about the different things we could focus on as a community that would bring in visitors. And one of the ideas that came out of those sessions was a music festival. At the time, we just didn't have anyone who was capable and in the right position to execute something this big. And so that is something that's always kind of been in the back of everyone's minds. And when Jim Blair was placed as the president or the chair of the Oklahoma Music Hall of Fame, I think he had the musical connections and the experience with festivals that really allowed us to be able to explore the idea further. And so in different tourism committee meetings that we've had at the Chamber of Commerce, the idea has just kind of been floated around until Jim Blair, I think, really was able to be a champion for the project and go to the City of Muskogee Foundation and to the City of Muskogee and just talk about it and ask them if they thought it was a good idea as well. And once he was able to get the buy-in for the project, of course, our tourism department was on board 1,000,000% because we know the economic impact that an event like this will have on Muskogee. Not just the hotel motel taxes that will rise, but the increase in sales tax for our whole community and the publicity and awareness that it will bring to Muskogee as a community in general is very valuable. And so learning about it and hearing about it, and I remember being in a meeting trying to think of what we were going to call the festival, and everybody was kind of tossing around ideas, and Gfest just kept coming up, and it just kind of stuck. And so there's where it began, in the Chamber of Commerce boardroom, as just a group of people discussing what the options were and how big this could be. It's exciting.
What does Gfest stand for?
Gfest stands for a whole lot of things. It really just depends and who you are and what you think it stands for. I love the fact that it stands for guitars, because we do have some 8-foot guitars all around Muskogee that celebrate our musical heritage and the Oklahoma Music Hall of Fame and all of the music that is happening in this community all the time. And I think it kind of stands for the G in Hag, because originally we were having Merle Haggard come to the festival, and so I think it can stand for just about anything, even the word great, because it's going to be a great festival.
And I perceive that it's a country festival, I'm not going to come. And so it becomes a challenge to try and put together a festival that's eclectic and has something for everybody. I think what was interesting about Gfest, for me personally, it felt like, from a marketing standpoint, it was a country festival, or was an Americana type festival with a lot of modern day bluegrass and folk music. But what's interesting is if you actually attended, you found out that the acts that performed actually did diversity in their sets. It was interesting to me to be introduced to Casey Musgrave's music, and I thought, well, okay, she's old school country, and yet she got up and did Bob Marley's Everything's Gonna Be All Right with a nice reggae beat to it, just the way Bob Marley's band did it. She also did a really nice version of CeeLo Green's Crazy. So I think people would have been pleasantly surprised, the folks who didn't go because they might have thought it was folk music or country. They would have been pleasantly surprised that there was actually something for everybody. My wife was pleasantly surprised by the Robert Randolph Band. I had actually tried to introduce her to Robert's music via YouTube, and she's like, steel guitar with distortion? No, I don't think so. Yet when she went and heard him live, I posted a video on Facebook because she's backstage dancing like crazy as the band is performing. And again, I think there were a lot of people who may not have known all the artists, but just wanted to go out and check it out, that were pleasantly surprised by what they heard. So for me, I want to see more diversity, but I know that's a challenge from marketing standpoint. And to be quite honest, working behind the scenes with this festival, the lineup, the way it ended up being is these were basically the folks who came through were the folks who said yes. When we put out offers, these were the guys who came back to us and said, yes, we'll do it. And so there was actually an even wider variety of music that we had selected, but there were schedule conflicts. There were different ones that didn't get back to us quick enough, and so we were really satisfied with what we got back, and said this will be, everybody who looked at it, all of the concert gurus, the festival gurus that we were leaning on, seeing as how this was our first time, all of those guys said the lineup that you have with the budget that you have, this should be a knockout. And from every response that we've got, it was a knockout.
Okay. Let's see if I can do kind of a nutshell version of that one for you. When we talk about music history in Muskogee, one of the really interesting things that we're able to do is look at a quantified period of time, because Muskogee's not that old. I think we might be coming up on 150 years old. In the context of the East Coast, it's not that much. So when you start to talk about music history in Muskogee, the first thing that you do is you have to work with the traditional American Indian music of the area. That's really where the history begins. The music of the Caddo, the Wichita, that sort of music. Subsequent to that, when you start to have the removal tribes coming in from the southeast, the Muskogee Creek, the Cherokee coming into that area, because Muskogee's kind of the border between Cherokee Nation and Muskogee Creek Nation. You then have to work with the traditional musics of those two tribes, but also the music that starts to evolve in those tribes as a result of their intermixing with both whites and blacks. So when you start to talk about that, you really start to talk about church music on one side, and then fiddle music or string music on the other side. The really interesting church music that comes out of the Muskogee Creek Nation comes from the mixing of white, black, and native musical, lyrical, and theological traditions. And as I have mentioned elsewhere, I believe that's some of the very first real American music, because it's the first American music that merges all three musical and aesthetic traditions. No one yet, to me, has found any music that predates Muskogee Creek hymns that combines African American, Anglo-European American, and American Indian musical sensibilities. And that's the beginning of music.
Though segregated by forced cultural traditions, pre- and post-Civil War Muskogee emerged as a unique place in Indian Territory and became the most racially integrated area west of the Mississippi. It wasn't unusual to find whites, Indians, and blacks attending the same schools and churches. By the time of statehood, more than 14,000 mixed-race children lived in Oklahoma. Most of that population was in a 20-mile radius of Muskogee.
We just rolled out the idea, the proposal of the bench at Gfest, because it all kind of came together at the same time. With Merle's passing, it was ideal spot and an